You're listening to Tell This Story. I'm Doug White, a veteran, retired law enforcement officer, and the author of Hiding in Plain Sight. This is a platform for those who serve in our families to share their experiences and help one another grow. This isn't therapy, it's truth, the tactics, and a way forward. It's an opportunity to become stronger than before, together. This episode is fueled by Polestar Coffee, veteran-owned and operated craft roasted coffee for people who live on the X. Use code THISSTORY at checkout for 10% off your order. Now let's get to work. Welcome to Tell This Story. Today we have the honor of sitting with Dr. Travis Yates. Travis is a 30-year law enforcement veteran and retired major who teaches principle-based leadership rooted in moral courage. In short, doing the right thing when it's uncomfortable, costly, or unpopular. He's the author of The Courageous Police Leader and now trains agencies nationwide on culture, accountability, officer safety, and decision-making under pressure through his Courageous Leadership platform and podcast. Today, we're going to talk about a wide range of topics that are front and center in law enforcement, and let's see where our conversation goes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tell This Story. Travis, how you doing, sir?
Doug, I'm fantastic, man. Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to visit with us. I know you're up to your neck in projects and speaking and research, but before we get started and go down all of those different paths that you could take us down, I have to own up to something. I had a complete fangirl moment tonight, and I have to say, for anybody who doesn't follow me on LinkedIn, one, shame on you. You should follow me on LinkedIn. But I found myself over the last several months reposting more Travis's work on leadership and moral courage than I do of my own. I'm a huge fan. And I had an opportunity to speak at the Wounded Blue at the end of September. And I was with my adopted big brother, John Kelly, as he was walking me around and introducing me to people. And I had already met our friend Tom Rizzo earlier in the day. And then when I walked into the conference room before the first day began, Travis Yates is standing there. And I had a complete meltdown, like I'd seen a superstar. And like, oh my God, that's Travis Yates. And be calm, relax.
That's ridiculous.
Don't be a fool. So it was an honor, one, to be able to go and speak at the Wounded Blue and share my story with some of the folks there and become more acquainted with Jesse and Bob Bemis and Randy and the whole crew over there. And it was great. It was a great honor and privilege to meet some of the people that I follow so closely. So I hope I didn't embarrass myself too much on that initial entry.
No, man. Listen, Doug, I told you this there, and I don't say it lightly, but, I've been around the speaking circuit for, my goodness, 25 or so years. And I've seen pretty much everybody, anything. And, it's like a lot of things. A lot of times that your expectations, you're sort of let down in your expectations. And man, when you spoke, it was something else, man. I didn't, if I didn't like what you said, I would have probably just been nice and just not said anything. But I came up to you after your talk, and if you'd told me that was only the second time you'd presented, I would have called you a liar, because that just tells me you have a natural ability that very few human beings have. And it's hard to explain it here. I'm just telling your audience that it was one of the most powerful things I've ever witnessed. And I hope people can even see my emotion now as I think back to it. I want to just congratulate you on using God's gift for what you're using it for, because there's no question what I witnessed was a gift. It wasn't some prepared, vanilla type, discussion trying to make a business happen. And trust me, I've seen all those, unfortunately, especially in leadership space. This was God. This was someone letting God use him. And it was amazing. So I can't wait till we get together again and I get to see it again and we do more together. But it was definitely my honor to be with you during that conference.
Well, I'm working on getting better at receiving compliments. Thank
you. Don't
you.
Call that a compliment. Just don't call it a compliment. It's just my unabashed, not even an opinion. It's a fact. It's not a compliment. It's just a fact.
Well, I appreciate that, sir. I think we're done here today. My day cannot get any better than it is right now. So thank you for that. But enough about me. I'll talk about me later on today. But let's talk about you and what you've been working on. I know that listening to your latest episode on the Courageous Police Leader, I know that you've stumbled across some numbers that you found concerning and you wanted to talk about. And I see you tensing a little bit, trying to get a little bit more space in your collar. I don't want your blood pressure to get up there, but I know you're passionate.
I have struggled with this a little bit, and I'll tell you why. If you listen to sort of the branding people out there, and I've had my share of talking to these coaches, and what do you do? I mean, there's no question that my passion is leadership. I get up, I read it, I talk it, I talk to other people about it. That's what I do each and every day. And everything that revolves around leadership, it may be recruitment and retention and culture and all those things, right? And it's what I have done full time since the day I retired, doing it pretty much full time, even when I was on the job, doing a lot of that. I wrote my book on the job. And I stumbled across an issue that, quite frankly, I didn't really want to get into. That's why I'm sort of tensing up. I don't feel like it's my issue to get into, but no one's getting into it. And I'll just sort of briefly tell the audience is I've been teaching leadership for many, many years, but there was just sort of this, I called it almost a side class that called Seconds for Survival. When I was a rookie cop, I went to, I'll give shout out Sergeant Jim Clark, who's long since retired, used to teach this little class to us every year it was this old school. He put in VHS tapes, and some of your audience may not know what that is. We'll just turn the channel if you don't. And we would watch these grainy police videos, and we'd watch pre-attack indicators. We'd watch what suspects would do before an
Hmm.
attack. And as a young officer, it just was ingrained in my mind, and no question in my mind, no question that potentially could have saved my life. There was no telling the benefit that it provided me. And then, I ran across these classes here and there throughout. And I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I started, just sort of putting together all my knowledge. And I was doing a lot of different training back then. I was doing Below 100. I was doing Drive to Survive. I was doing all these different, I had like a catalog of classes.
Hmm.
And this was one of them. And through the years, that class became the most popular class I did. And even to the point to this day is I now offer two classes. I offer several classes in the leadership space, and then I offer Seconds for Survival. But so I've been involved in that information for a long time. But I noticed in recent years, like, this is nothing new. Like, I'm not some expert in this. Like, I was taught this 30 plus years ago, just like you were, Doug, in the academy, and
Hmm.
probably been to training ever since about it. But I noticed in the last 4 or 5 years, like, fewer and fewer people in this class had even heard of this stuff. And I was like, what, kind of what's going on? And what's going on is post 2020 is we quit giving cops training they actually need to survive, and we started filling it in with who knows what. And you put on top of that, not every de-escalation class is the same. Trust me. Inside Seconds for Survival is a de-escalation component designed to actually de-escalate whether they want to or not. Meanwhile, other de-escalation classes are sort of like assuming that the crazy psycho hyped up on meth will just de-escalate because you talk nice to them. So there's a little
Yes.
bit of a flaw there.
Yeah.
But I've noticed fewer and fewer people have heard about this. They love the class. And I've also noticed um, less and less people are being sent to the class. This is a leadership issue. And I've also had officers come up to me and said, listen, I love the class. You tie it all back to case law. I know it's legal. I know it's legitimate. I know it works. But if I do this, my chief will fire me. Something to that effect. Which I'm like, what are you? This is like basic police tactics 101 stuff. I'll give you just a quick example. Like, if you're talking to somebody, a suspect, and they start doing all kinds of these pre-attack indicators, I say something crazy like, hey, it may be a good idea to put handcuffs on them right now. Just, lock them up, get handcuffs on them, figure out what's going on, instead of continuing to let them go on. And at the same time, I put on top of that, we've all seen the videos on YouTube or whatever else of cops seeing these things, and they just continue to not do anything, and then something horrible happens.
Yeah. The
Then you
15
put on
verbal
top,
commands of sir,
yeah, yeah.
sir, sir, stop,
Yeah.
sir. Yeah.
And then you put on top of that, since 2020, every year since, the officer assault rate has increased to the point of 2024. It's an all-time record since the FBI started tracking it, which goes against the common grain, which violent crime spiked in 2020, 21, but it has come down a little bit, not to 2019 levels, but it's creeped down. So as violent crime creeps down, we see assaults creeping down. No, it's the opposite arc right now. So I'm seeing all this, and I get brought on as an expert on a case involving a police officer that's been charged with a crime that did nothing wrong. His boss cleared him, his department cleared him, did nothing wrong, and they just charged him with a crime. And it entails a lot of these indicators. And so because of that, I started digging into a lot of the research behind it. Because what I do is I don't talk about peer-reviewed research. I go in there and I show them it's a practical class. And what I found out is there's not only very little research on this topic, there is no research on everything we've done in law enforcement, Doug. We've pushed de-escalation. We've pushed these use of force policies that take you away from Granby Connor to the last resort. And there has been nobody that comes in afterwards and says, well, we should look at this and see if this actually worked. It actually is to have the opposite effect. And so I thought to myself, am I really supposed to be doing this? But then I kind of came to the conclusion, if this isn't leadership, what is? right?
Yeah.
If this is
Yeah.
not, if officer safety and officer survival and implementing correct policy is not leadership, what is? And that's not going to get me on a bunch of speaking circus next year, because trust me, the very people that bring you and I in are the people that are making these decisions sometimes, unfortunately. And then I dove in a little deeper and I pulled these policy changes, and I read a study that was by perf, which is, where all East Coast chiefs go to die. That if you want to ruin police work, you just hire a perf. We run your police department, you just hire a perf. And it was a study by perf that said essentially that the common citizen doesn't understand what legal justified force is. And it was a peer-reviewed study, and they gave these videos of these citizens that were justified and then videos of non-justified. And literally what it came up with is a flip of a coin. Like it was a 50%, like basically half of them got it right, half of them got it wrong. And instead of the study saying we should educate the public better on what legal justified force is, the study said you should make your policy and your training to the standard the public expects, which, by the way, is 50% failure off automatically.
Yeah.
It was 50% of the people that got it wrong, which I thought, and they used one example of a success. It was South Bend, Indiana. And they said South Bend, Indiana changed their use of force policy to you may only use deadly force as a absolute last resort. Now, to the common citizen listening to this, Doug, they may go, well, that sounds pretty good. This comes from academics. Of course, it sounds pretty good. The problem with that is I would ask that citizen, what does that mean? What does absolute last resort mean? It's not what case law says. It's not what Graham v. Connor says. We've had our existing case law since 1989. It's not going anywhere. Like it's been standard. Like all these changes that's occurred in law enforcement have not been because of the courts. It's because our leaders decided to make a change with no evidence whatsoever. And now we're paying the price, Doug. We got more officers assaulted than ever before. So I said, okay, well, South Bend is their example of success. Let's just see how South Bend's doing. And fortunately for me, because most departments don't do this, they published their use of force data and their officer injury data. Since the implementation of the policy as a last resort, people are not, they're just going to hesitate. They're going to hesitate. They're going to hesitate until the suspect makes a horrible decision, unfortunately. Yeah. And we have to, their officer injury rate has increased 64%. Their use of force rate, remember, this policy is designed to minimize force. It's only as a last resort. The problem is the suspects don't get to use that policy. They will do whatever it takes to whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So
they're not being held accountable by our SOP.
Which is why their use of force increased 60%. So you've got PERF, I wouldn't call them leading organization by any means. They're a joke to any cop that's listening to this. They know that, but they have a lot of money. They have a lot of sway with our police leaders that are saying, do this. And when they did this, the success they used was an agency that their officer injury rate and their use of force increased exponentially. And it blows my mind. It blows my mind. And I'm thinking to myself, Doug, why am I the one discovering this? Why am I the one talking about this? You know how many leadership gurus we have out there? You know how many IACP and police organizations and everybody that says they have your backs out there? Why am I talking about this? Then I made the mistake of looking at all states that implemented a last resort policy. Now, there's about 24 states that really screw with their use of force policy, putting their officers' lives in danger. But there's about a dozen that has that explicit language. Out of the dozen, I found 3 states that published their officer injury rate. 3 states. So Washington, their officer injury rate since that policy changed went up 42%. Virginia went up 123%.
Good Lord.
And Maryland went up 12%. Now, that's happened in more places. That's why last year was an all-time high on officer assault rates. And I'm thinking to myself, no one is talking about this. That is a huge problem in any leadership, in any industry. I guarantee you, if the injury rates and product failure rates of Apple was an all-time high last year, they would be going crazy. Their leaders would be leading. What are our leaders doing, Doug? They're doubling down on dumb. They're continuing down this road of these de-escalation and last resort policies. And by the way, Dr. Robin Engel, the research says, she says there is no scientific evidence of any of this working. I pulled up all the peer review research on all these things. There is no evidence of any of it working. Now, could it work in a different way? It's possible. But it's amazing to me that we have implemented things that, yeah, maybe they sound good, but we've implemented things that are actually making things more dangerous, not only for us, for citizens. Use of force is increasing. Now, if you're asking yourself, well, how does use of force increase if you restricted your policy? It's because officers aren't making a quick decision. Okay, so I'll
Correct.
go back to my example. You're talking to somebody on the street and they start kind of getting happy feet. They're looking around, they're putting their hands in their pocket. Hey, if you snatch them up, throw some handcuffs on them real quick. It's over. It's over.
Yeah.
If you don't, and you just sit there and keep talking nice like your federal government DOJ mandatory de-escalation training told you to do, they assault you, or worse, you have to then use a higher level of force. That's why you're seeing use of force increase in this country, and you're seeing injury rates increase in this country while crime is ticking down. And nobody in this profession that I can find is even talking about it. And I am completely depressed by this, as you can tell. What if I'm the one talking about it, Doug? This profession has a problem because I don't lead a police department. I'm not the
Yeah.
president of the ICP. I don't have the influence that these organizations have, but they're the actual ones that have done it. Look at the ICP model policy. They're the ones that are pushing it. If you read DOJ consent decrees, which I found in Phoenix, they lied 97% of the time, so they lied. You have these organizations that are supporting these. And so our profession's got a problem. And so the only thing that I thought I could do about this is yes, talk about it, yes, write about it, is to do something about it. And so I'm in the middle of building a system for officers to protect their lives. And now, once again, why am I doing it? I don't know. I have this double speak of going, well, Travis, you're a leadership guy. You talk about leadership. Why are you off into this? I don't know what else to do, Doug.
Because this
And
is
if this
leadership.
isn't about leadership, what's it about? And so when I got this idea and I started looking into this where there's no evidence for this, no evidence of that, well, how do you build that? How do you validate an officer safety protocol? You're not going to believe what I found when it came to that. Yeah, there is no protocol that I can give you as a police officer to go, if you see these different signs, you should do A, B, C, or D. There's no protocol. Yeah, we have anecdotal evidence, right? There's about 23 different pre-attack indicators that's been written about and talked about in various trainings and articles that we can all go, hey, be very careful if you see this. But there's no, if you don't give these police leaders a protocol, that officer that came up to me is right. My chief will fire me if I do this. So you've got to develop an actual protocol and you have to validate it. And I would not recommend a doctorate degree for anybody. It was a horrible experience. I got dumber along the way. No, my school was great. My people were great. But trust me, it's a horrible experience. But the one thing it did teach me was to how to validate things and research and this and that. And you know what I found when I looked into this?
What's
Yeah,
that?
there's no validation protocol for law enforcement, Doug, but there is for corrections officers. There is for EMT. There is for school teachers. There is for psychiatrists. Every industry has this, but us. I'm bothered by it. But all I can do with that energy, Doug, is to do something about it. I can't really go into detail now, but by first quarter of next year, we're going to roll this out. I think it could be a game changer. Now, do I expect a lot of police chiefs or leaders to do it? No, because they're the ones that's done the stuff that's got us in trouble. But there's enough courageous men and women that will understand what I'm talking about, and this will be a tool for them to make their officers safer.
Well, that is exciting news, and I've got several follow-ups. First, the numbers for the crime numbers, the assault numbers, and the use of force numbers. Is that coming from LEOCA? And if so, are the 18,000 law enforcement agencies in this country mandated to report that stuff to UCR?
Yeah,
I
about
mean,
half
has
the
there been a
departments.
change since I retired
No,
2 years ago?
when I tell you 85,000, there were 85,000 plus, so it's 85 something, right? 85,000 plus officer assaults last year. That's an all-time record. That's for less than 50% of the agencies reporting the data.
So what
It's
what
much,
I'm getting at is it's a much larger problem than what we've been
yeah.
shown.
And it's actually a much larger problem than the numbers. Even if every department reported the numbers, how many times were you assaulted, Doug, and that never got written in a report? That never got written in a document. Of course, right?
Yeah.
And if people want to know why I'm so focused on assaults and not line of duty deaths, because you can't gauge safety on line of duty deaths because we have really good trauma one hospitals now that are saving people's lives like they never used to before.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you hear about at 1974, we lost 280 officers and 170 were line of duty death, and we only lost 60 last year to felonious. So it's no, you can't compare that.
No, trauma
There's a
medicine
study.
is leaps and bounds beyond what it even
Yeah,
was in 2002.
yeah,
It's funny. Your career and my career, our professional lives, both started in '93 and ended in '23. As far as being on the road and being of service in uniform and carrying a gun, and I've heard you say that when you started to what it is now, you can't even. It's almost unrecognizable. But I remember the old VHS tapes, the bladed stance, clenched fist, targeted gaze. I'm not answering your questions, all of the pre-attack indicators. And, I wondered to myself, and I've got several thoughts on this. I will say, and this is kind of a flex, I have never been pushed, punched, kicked, slapped, or touched during a resist during my entire 25-year career with the sheriff's office. I don't really know why I'm knocking on wood because I don't want to invite a fight, although one would probably feel good right about now. But anyway, And it was because I remember those indicators. When somebody bladed their body or had a targeted gaze or wasn't listening to me or clenched their fist, that was an indication to me that I better do something before they do something.
Right.
And because of that, I was never assaulted. Now, I've been
Yep.
injured because I boxer's fractures. I don't get little bones out of the way when I grab a hold of people and, you know,
Yeah.
have messed up, pinky fingers and all that other stuff. But that was with my own doing. But I do see some of the younger generation that have come through under these new policies. And I will tell you, as somebody going through it, remembering what it was prior to and now with the de-escalate everything, I never ever feared a bad guy. But if I saw the prefix of my command center on my cell phone during a shift or even on a day off, buddy, that's going to ruin my day. And it could be,
Yeah.
hey, you've been promoted. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I would get such anxiety seeing that because I have no idea what they're going to do. And I think the reason you're doing this is moral courage. One, you've got your pension. So I think you and I and people in this space, we sit in a nice place because we don't have to worry about the opinions of others for us to put food on our table. But beyond that, the people who control the checkbooks to bring you in to speak, you're speaking out against them. So I believe that shows moral courage that, but damn that, you're looking at the bigger side of bringing, women and men who serve still home safely. And I think people are afraid of that. Weaker leaders are going to be afraid of that. You are a mirror to them. You show them where they're inadequate. And quite frankly, I think weaker people don't want to be in a room with you because of that reason.
Oh, listen, there's plenty of good men and women that I get, I get to be in front of the audience to this day. I'm never going to be in front of an ICP audience or a perf audience or all these organizations that have ruined this profession. Nah, I don't, I wouldn't expect to, and I don't hold it against them. They have their way of doing things, and I have my way of doing things, right? And we have a lot of good leaders, and I get bashed sometimes saying I'm speaking against leaders. No, there's a lot of great leaders,
Mhm.
but if
There
we
are.
don't speak out about the bad ones, how are you going to actually correct anything? If you go to a doctor today at lunchtime and the doctor goes, "Hey, we're going to start chemotherapy next week," you're like, "What are you talking about?" A doctor would never do that. A doctor would start off with, "Here's what's wrong with you,
Mhm.
and here's how we're going to fix it." And so, you know, a lot of my writings and a lot of my speaking is about, hey, here's what's wrong, here's how to fix it. And I was sitting down the other day, Doug, and once again, I am I'm so disheartened by this leadership space in law because of what we hold up. I'll give you a quick example. People will hold up all of these. I could mention all these leadership things that most people have probably heard of, right? And I've been to all of them. I've been to the FBI National Academy, I've been to ICP, leadership police. I've been to all these things. It's all fine and dandy. It's mainly theory based. It's all great.
Mhm.
But but we but if that stuff worked from a practical sense, why have we been going through what we're going through? Like if that stuff was working, like we have a head to heart problem. That's all head stuff. Who's talking to leaders about how does it make it into your heart of what's right and wrong? The
That was actually gonna be
practical
my next
aspects.
question.
Yeah,
With
the
all of those
practical
things, what are
aspects.
we still
Yeah,
missing
the
the mark?
practical aspects of leadership, and that's why we've developed leadership principles. They're not crazy, Doug. Have integrity. Stay focused on the mission, liberty, civility, public safety. Not difficult. Don't let feelings redefine facts. But
I love that one.
how many times are decisions being made based on feelings? I just named the policy and I just named a bunch of them, all feelings,
Yeah,
not facts.
the narrative
You
doesn't
know,
meet the data.
communicate to eliminate misunderstanding. That's all practical stuff, right? How many times, I mean, in Kenosha, that big high profile incident, it took him 9 days to tell the public, well, yeah, he wasn't a peacekeeper. He actually had a knife and he was trying to, and he was, had a warrant out for assaulting this woman sexually and everything else. Why it took 9 days for anybody to tell that story. And it was the union dude that told the story. By that time, the story's over with. You're never getting that story back.
Yeah.
You know when they knew that story, Doug? 9 seconds after it happened, not 9 days. But nobody wants to say that, right? And here's the other one. Always anticipate and continually challenge assumptions and status quo. So you know what people are going to get upset about. I just talked about this training thing. If you know that could upset people, you have to go educate people and explain what I just explained. This has to be done, right? And so we've got, that's what we train, that's what we teach. It works. Sheriff Mark Lamb is one guy that honored me to said, man, this is what I implemented. And this was one of the things that made my department successful. Now he's a pretty talented leader without me, trust me, but he,
Correct,
he
yes.
came to the training and he implemented that. And so it's not rocket science. It's just practical common sense that I just don't understand how we messed it up. Cause like you said, You could book in my career and it's not even the same. And the problem with it is, Doug, is if you come into the career in the last 5 years, you have no reference point. You think this is
Yeah.
normal. This is normal. I'm just the old guy, or I've been called a lot worse.
Well,
You're
this is
just the
it's a
white
clown world is
supremacist
what it
old guy.
is.
You're just the white supremacist old school guy. No, this is why crime was reduced to the lowest number in records in the 90s, early 2000s. We knew our mission. By the way, the same politicians that want to complain about us enforcing the law are the same politicians that passed the laws. So we got the
Yeah,
laws.
everybody
We
missed that whole
enforced the
part
law.
in
Yeah. Oh
2020,
yeah. We
didn't they?
enforced the laws.
Yeah.
We enforced the laws, and we threw people in jail. And that amazingly reduced crime to record levels, and it made our citizens extremely comfortable, because that's our sole mission, is to provide a safer environment for the community. But you look around, not every department, but many departments, that has nothing to do with the mission. I can show you, I can prove it to you. If you're going to do an interview to be an next police chief in like a mid-sound department or more, and they ask you what your number one priority is as police chief, you better not say crime reduction. You'll never get hired. You better say something goofy like, I believe in community trust and engaging with the community, whatever. That stuff's
Yeah.
important. But
No,
if
all
you're
of those
not,
things are I'm
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
but if you're not reducing crime, what good is that? And by the way, a great way to build community trust is to do your job well and reduce crime and make things safer. And if anybody doesn't believe what I just said is true, go to Google later and just type in police chief fired for high crime. Good luck finding it.
It doesn't
They don't get
exist.
fired for high crime.
No.
They actually get to bigger departments and more woke departments and bigger pay raises, as long as they don't even discuss crime or do anything about crime. And so we're in a bad place. And my mission is, I live it and breathe it, is I'm just trying to build disciples to go out here and to make a difference. That's why I love it when there's officers in my class. I mandate it, actually, because these departments, we have this hierarchy system, right? Like, you can only do this if you have so many years on. You can only go to leadership training if you got stripes or you're this and that. You can't go to the FBI National Academy unless you're a captain. We have all these bureaucracy, ridiculous tiers.
Mm-hmm.
And these departments will call and say, hey, we're going to do this training for sergeants and above or lieutenants and above. And I go, well, I'm not coming. There better be officers in that class. Leadership's for everybody. If you're not willing to make everybody a leader, what good am I going to do? And it takes them back by surprise, but most of them will comply with that, because if we can get those officers in that training, in those classes, Doug, those are the future leaders, or the future chiefs, or the future majors.
Absolutely.
So,
it's the best way to work yourself out of a job. It really is. I'm going down my list of questions and you're hitting them. And I never do questions. I did them for you because there's so many things that you can cover. And I wanted to be prepared to speak intelligently to anything that you went off on. And I want to go into courageous leadership. And there are so many things that have been happening around this country, things that have happened here locally in Tampa with my old agency. I read your article when you put it out at the beginning of September. I refreshed myself with it just last night. The reputation breeds cowardly leadership. And the importance of character over reputation. And at least right into moral courage and everything else. And I know that moral courage by leadership will kill a culture of toxic leadership. And I think my personal feelings, and it's just from my experiences, I have no data to back this up, but I believe that toxic leadership and agencies running poorly or being run poorly, I say corrupt, but just awful, horrible, toxic cultures in our profession. That's what's killing the recruitment and retention of law enforcement officers. I would say, I'm still only 2.5 years or 2 years removed from law enforcement, but I would say that when I was working was just as violent as it was 15 years prior and even 15 years in the future. The only difference is it's 18 inches away from our face on the phone. We see more of it. I wasn't any less hated from 1998 to 2000. The same people that wanted to harm me because I drove a white car or wore a white shirt with a badge on it were the same then as they are today. Now, if my son came to me and said, hey, Dad, I'm thinking about going into law enforcement, I would say, you know what? I think it's a wonderful idea. It's a wonderful profession. It's a noble profession. You'll make enough money to support your family and be proud of your life's work. However, don't go to this agency, this agency, this agency. Stay away from people like this. There would be so many caveats to that. There are fantastic agencies out there, but the question I'm trying to get at is why is moral courage so important, and why is it make recruitment and retention? Why is it so important to those two aspects of keeping people in our career field?
Well, I want to get to that question, but I want to back us up a little bit because I want to
Okay.
make sure people understand this point. The things that this profession endured from 2020 on or 2014 on or whatever, that's nothing new. It's
Mm.
nothing new. I mean, when I started, politicians hated us. They lied about us. The media wrote fake stories about us. Activists did what they did. Lawyers sued us. None of that has changed. Yes, social media is sort of a 10x factor and you see it more, but none of that from its core has changed. We all navigated that, and we were
Mhm.
able to navigate that because our leaders wouldn't put up with it. I mean, I
Correct.
can specifically remember sergeants going to the chief telling him what was up if he pulled something off. I can specifically remember a chief telling the media, you have no more rights in this building anymore because you're a liar. I mean, I specifically remember chiefs suing activists for defamation. I mean, they would not put up with the lies. And then something switched, right? We let that going. And to get to your recruitment and retention, it's everything. What the reason you're seeing 68% of cops that start law enforcement today will be out of the profession in 5 years. The reason that stat's there is because they're so alive with the fancy marketing materials. They get inside the building and they go, what is this? I didn't know anything about this, right? And so that's the reason that's happening. So it is the secret. But when you talk about, so that's the secret to retention is healthy culture, healthy leadership. I've been doing a study, Doug, in the private industry for 50 years they've been doing this, and they survey millions of people in the private industry, and they say, why do you stay at your job? And of course, it's all the police chiefs know the number one reason people stay at their job is bonuses and police salary. No, it's not.
No.
It's not even in the top 5 for employers. The number one every single year. And this is a legitimate study they do. It's not Gallup, but I have the details in my class I talk about. At number one every year of why I stay at my job, I'm supported by my leadership. Number one. And the benefits start coming in about number 4, number 5. But yeah, number one is support. That's why the big bonuses haven't helped these agencies for recruitment. That's why people are still leaving, even though cops are making more money today than they ever made before, because we thought we could just throw money at the problem and not fix ourselves, right? That's what we're doing. We need to start looking in the mirror, not out the window, because all these problems we're dealt with, you can name. I don't care. You can name the activist group. You can name Ben Crump. You can name the media. That it's not their fault. In fact, I kind of commend them for taking advantage of our cowards. They got to be sitting back going, can you believe we said this lie and they just bought it and they just gave us a settlement and they just fired that cop just because we demanded it? I mean, I commend them for their evilness, right? Because they're getting away with it. Our leaders are failing us at every level. Once again, not all, but many of our leaders are failing us at every level. And you want to talk about recruitment. I saw a congressional hearing a couple of years ago, and it was back when the military was underperforming all the recruit numbers. Now they're back up now, but back then they called everybody in, and they were all underperforming. They're giving big bonus money. They couldn't get the recruiting numbers up. Then the head of the Marines, and I apologize, I don't know the rank, colonel or general or something. Well, whoever is the head of the Marines was in front of Congress, and they said, we don't understand this, sir. We talked to the Army and the Navy and the Air Force, and they're all underperforming. They're not hitting their recruiting numbers, which, by the way, is kind of important for national security that we hit our
Mhm.
recruiting numbers every year. He said, but the Marine Corps, sir, you're not offering any bonuses. You're not offering anything. And you have consistently outperformed these other branches, and you are hitting your recruiting numbers. Why? And all he said was, because they get a chance to be a United States Marine. Now, what is that? That's mission. That's mission. So
That's it. That's it.
police leaders have done, Doug, is there's a host of people that want to be law enforcement officers. They don't want to be TikTok dancers, and they don't want to be community this, or they don't want to, they want to be law enforcement officers. They want to work in an organization that their mission is to make people safer. That's a noble mission. And you've got all these departments that have ran away from that, and their recruiting numbers have hurt. And you can mix in, they still recruit like it's 1990. I'm involved with safeguard recruiting. We do a wonderful job of processes. There's a bunch of process failures too. The recruiting, we don't have a recruiting crisis in law enforcement, Doug. I'm telling you that right now. We have a leadership crisis. There's plenty of people that want to work in law enforcement, but they're not going to come work for you if they don't feel supported and they don't feel like that they can do their job without being scrutinized at every level. And that's the whole problem with it.
Amen. Amen. First, I want to go back a little bit. I love the Jim Collins quote, "Look in the mirror before you look out the window." I love that. I'm a firm believer in
Did
that.
Colin steal that from me? It's
I believe
funny.
he did. Read
It's funny.
Good to Great before I read Courageous Police Leaders.
Well, listen, it's funny because when I was writing my book in, like, I don't know, 16, 17, 18, 19, and all these great books were coming out, like Jocko's Extreme Ownership came out, and I didn't read any of them. I'm like, I don't want to get influenced, so I stayed away from them. And then if once a week somebody walk up to me like, hey, I read your book. You love that Jocko book, didn't you? I mean, I'm like, what? And so it's hard to avoid that, but
First of all, if
obviously
anybody
excellent
says
book.
Jocko on my show, I have to give the sign of the cross. No, I'm kidding. I'm
Well,
kidding.
so
I'm a big fan of his
so
work. So
and same thing with courageous leadership. Somebody goes, "Well, hey, so you like Brene Brown?" And I go, "Who?" Well, obviously Brene Brown has done a lot of work in courage, not exactly courageous leadership, but now listen, we can all live in the same space,
you,
and
you know,
everybody can live together, so it's all good.
I love that. I often have this conversation with my wife when I was working, even more so. But she's in the corporate world and she's been in leadership positions for years. And she would come home talking about a problem with an employee or a situation that would arise at work. And she would vent, not looking for my input because I'm just a cop. It's different. No, it's not. But for years and years and years, I would be the problem fixer because that's what we do. And I said, well, this is what I would do and what I think, would to me, that was all intuitive. And I never went to the National Academy. I never went to IACP or any of that stuff. But the majority of my examples came from negative leadership. Don't
Yeah,
ever do that. And I didn't read any of the books, but I would give her my input. And of course, one day she realized when I actually solved one of her problems, and probably she implemented it, whatever it was. I don't want to get in a fight with Michelle when she gets home over this, but she's like, it's really all the same.
yeah,
Yes. So when you tell me dealing
yeah,
with cops or dealing with, younger enlisted folks, it's no different. People want to be treated properly. They want to feel safe. They want to feel like that they can see the value of what they're doing,
yeah,
contributing to their organization. It's a human need and it's how you deliver it. And she'll tell me something that Brene Brown said or Mel Robbins said, and, let them, the whole concept that she's doing now and girl, wash your face, all the stuff that she reads, it's
yeah,
on the shelf behind me on the lower level
yeah.
because my Jim Collins, Jocko, and Dr. Travis Yates and all that stuff are on the first shelf. But she looks at it and she says, oh my God, this is all the same stuff. It's just
Yeah,
in
yeah.
somebody else's
Well,
voice.
and Doug, that's the beauty of
It
leadership,
is.
right? That's what I love about it
It's not a secret. It's everywhere.
right. But and that's why I put courage over it. We all know
Mhm.
leadership, but you have to have the courage to actually live it out. And it's the umbrella because if it's worth nothing, we have more leadership knowledge today than ever. And it's funny you said about your wife because my wife, she no longer works here, but she used to work at I don't want to name the brand, I want to name the company. She used to work at a high end clothing company out of Canada that sells really expensive yoga pants. But anyway, I'll leave the brand name off. And she would come home and she's been to my trainings, right? She's like, I can't believe they did this and this. And she was equating it to my trainings. And you're right. It's all the same. It's no different. The problem is, I think when it comes to leadership, you've got, you just, it, I think you have convoluted messages sometimes with personalities because there's difference between I'm trying to build a business and a brand versus this is what I believe, right? And you're one of those, Doug. Like you're like me. You don't care about building a brand or business because you're going to tell the truth and you're going to say what exactly how it is. And before we move out any further, I would say this to you: if your audience has not bought Doug's book, you have to buy his book. And whether Doug knows it or not, once again, I read this on the plane coming home from Las Vegas at that conference, Doug, where I got this, and we have more in common than I think you'll ever know. And not only you're about 6'3". How tall are you? 6'3".
6'1", but thank you.
Okay, well I thought you were similar to my height. I'm at least 6'6". No, I'm 6'3". We started and ended the same year. We both saw the decline in the profession. We both made our share of mistakes. We both left. I didn't leave, and I wasn't Clayton Kershaw winning the World Series on a high note. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who have that story. You have that story as well, but you were able to share it in a way that I think I just want you to know it makes a difference. The vulnerability it took to write this, it couldn't have been easy. I couldn't imagine doing it. I just want you to know that it spoke to me in a beautiful way, and thank you for that. And I would encourage all of your listeners to go get it.
Again, I'm getting better at receiving compliments, and
It's
thank
not
you,
a
sir. That is
compliment. It was just a
I
fact, Doug. I'm
that
not, I
is
don't, it's just a fact.
well, it's a well-stated fact, sir. Thank you. Thank you for that. It was not easy. It was like sawing off my arm, and then when I went to Vegas, just before I met you, I had just wrapped up reading the Audible, and going back through that a year after I had sent the book off to publish, and having to go through it again, not having opened it in that year, but now looking at it with, 360 plus days of uh, different lens and a different vantage point, having lived it live and then having to live it out loud. It was something. So I was in a very special place at the end of September, and the
Well,
Audible
and
book's out there. And thank you for all of
yeah,
that.
you got to get it. And I would leave you with this because I know I battle with this, and I would assume you do too. Like I look back at some of my mistakes, and by the way, everybody listening to this has
Mhm.
made mistakes, right? But I have a bad way of looking at something and go, man, if I'd have done this or I'd done that or I'd done this or that, and maybe my family would be better off and financially better off. And you discussed that plainly in your book, which was amazing that you did that. But then I kind of come back to this is for some reason you and I are sitting here because God wants us sitting here, Doug, talking about these things. There's a reason why everything happens. Romans 8:28. For all those that know God, love God, there's a reason for everything that happens in your life. And I don't regret anything. For some reason, in the good times and bad times, it's all for a reason. And one day, maybe on this side of eternity, probably on the other side, we're going to know those exact answers. But that's what I rest in. So I would just encourage you not to dwell on that because I know I struggle with that, right? We all do. And you and I probably would have never met. We wouldn't be talking today if both of us hadn't had these sort of similar careers and gotten to a place where we are. So
Mhm.
I really just appreciate everything that it probably took to do that, and I can't imagine what it took. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I'm honored and grateful to be on this mission with folks like you, Tom Rizzo, John Kelly. In fact, John and I we speak probably 3 or 4 times a week.
And
And
how
it's
crazy is this, Doug? I mean, how crazy is this? Like a guy from Oklahoma, an East Coast New Jersey dude,
yeah,
a very
very soft-spoken guy from South Florida.
a very non-masculine John Kelly, and then a very masculine Doug White, all could get together and speak the same language. And you could throw in Roland Clee, and you could throw in
Roland, I
Jesse
just
Watts, and you can throw
yes,
in
yes.
just, I mean, I could rattle 50 people right now that we have no business all associating with that somehow it's happened. So I feel like there's a reason for that. I know there's a reason for that. There's a movement behind that. And I'm just, I'm anticipating where that all leads. And I so appreciate everybody involved in that.
Me too, and I just connected, just this past week with Roland, and, just by chance, John was telling me, "Hey, I'm gonna connect you with Roland. He's a great guy." And so, well, I read a lot of his stuff, and I'm paying attention to him, and I commented on a post, and, he reached out to me and like, "Man, that guy is just a warm hug." He really is good people. You just feel it and
Yeah.
just a message. That's all
Yeah.
it was. And it was, man, this is really cool. So I'm like you, I'm very grateful. And I don't know what the reasons are. I don't understand it myself. I mean, I walked around the Wounded Blue thinking, what am I doing here? Just the people that I got to
Yeah.
meet and talk
Yeah.
to, Dr. Trevor Wilkins. I'm like, yeah, I mean, yeah, he's the angry Viking doctor, but the guy's shoulders look like coconuts. I'm like, this dude's a monster. And I was at the gym the next morning with John Kelly. I said, "Hey, you met Trevor Wilkins, right?" He goes, "Oh yeah." It's like, "That's a big boy." I said, "He looks like a big guy online, but man, in real life, that's a big guy." Anyway, I
Yeah.
was I was starstruck the entire week, just trying to figure out why, the junior varsity kid, or why mom was making everybody hang out with the little brother that week. And I was just so grateful to be there and learn and
Well, and
be
this,
part of this.
I will tell you what I told John. I found John early on. I think when he was got started, I found his website, and I just something about it. I just reached out and I called him up, and I don't think he was doing a lot of speaking back then. And I just said,
Mhm.
dude, you just need to stay doing what you're doing. Like it's going to happen. And I think the reason that you resonate so well, Doug, and John resonates so well, and Roland resonates so well is you're just authentic. You're real. I think not only is law enforcement thirsty for authenticity, the whole world is. We're so tired of fake because there's
Yeah.
so much. I mean, it's just just stay in your lane, be authentic, be who you are, and and this is going to be a long and productive road. I know it is for you.
I feel that too, and authenticity is the key. If not, why are we here? I
Yeah,
don't need to
yeah,
sell trauma dollars. I don't need to do any of this.
right.
I've got a pension. I mean, I retired at 49 and a half years old. I don't have to do a thing. But there's a moral obligation to pass on the lessons that we have learned so
Yeah,
people don't have to do it the hard way. I mean, there is an easier and better way to do the things that we've done, and I don't want somebody to wander down that road. I don't want somebody to have that 3 o'clock in the morning darkened parking lot moment. If I can stop one person from doing that, then this is all a win. I can
right,
fold up shop today.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just, grateful to be here. I'm so grateful for your time. What are you working on for 2026? We know that the use of force as last resort is something you're working on now, but, do you have another book? Are you speaking in 2026? Do you have anything
Well,
lined up for us?
I have a I've got some speaking engagements in 26, but I have a book in the can. I don't know why I'm hesitating, man. I've got a book on my computer right now. It's canned up. It hadn't been final edited yet or final formatted yet, but yeah, it's ready to go. But I think the reason I'm hesitating is my first one was sort of this big old giant sort of introducing people to the topic. This other one is because people would read that and they would say, well, I get all this, but how do you do it? How do you build courage? How do you do it? And that's sort of what I'm obsessed with. And so I wrote it's I mean, I don't know exactly, but it's probably 120, 130 pager, probably it's a quick read, very short chapters, gets them to starts off with the cowardice, moves them all the way through to the courage and what it takes to remain courageous. Because it's a daily thing, right? You can't
Hmm.
just make this great courageous decision and then say, I'm good, I'm there. No, it's a
Yeah.
daily walk to doing what's right because everything is going against you out there in the world to try to. I mean, you're pulled to wrongness. We're pulled every day to I'll take the easy road or just go with the flow or
Just stay
just
in
say
bed. You
this
don't
and
have to
it'll all
work
be
out
good.
today.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's our core nature, right? And if biblically, we know that. We know sin is our core nature. We know if you don't believe me, hang out with a 2-year-old. Those babies are the most selfish, loud, boisterous, out of control human beings you'll ever see. The problem is what happens when they go from the 2-year-old to the boardroom, right, or 2-year-old to the police chief position. We don't really change at the end of the day. It just looks different. It does more damage. So it's a quick, almost a devotional style read. I just haven't let loose of it. It's difficult to let loose of something because once you let loose of it, it's there. I'll get to it. So I'm 2026 is probably when that's going to come out. I'm writing another one right now that is almost more of a research system of what courage is, and trainings in between. There's going to be a certification for courageous leadership that comes out probably in late 2026, where I'm at the point in my life where I'm not hey, you got to hire Travis to come to your police department to teach this. No, I'm just going to put it out there online for people and they can be certified and they can go teach it and they can go do it. That's how we spread this. And so
Yeah.
that's going to come after I'm working on this behavioral analysis thing now and certifying all that and give people some expert level equip people to do that. But after that, so there's a lot going on, a lot shaking. We didn't talk about it much, but I'm vice president of Safeguard Recruiting, which is started by a retired Utah DPS friend of mine. We've known each other for 20 plus years. And I don't know, back in 2020, 2021, when all this so-called recruiting crisis started, we sort of looked at each other and said, well, there's no crisis. They're doing this wrong. They're doing this wrong. They're still going to job fairs and spending money on billboards. I mean, that's not how the private industry recruits, right? They
No.
recruit in a totally different way. And so we just implemented business processes and it was slow going for a few years. I was still on the job. He was still coming away from the job and retiring and it's going full bore now. And we have major departments on board, and we're sending departments. I mean, we have one client we send them 1,200 people a month. So don't tell me people don't want to be a cop. If you implement the correct processes, we send them a lot of people. Now we run into the same problem with that company as everything else is leaders buy into marketing and the pretty pictures. It's a
Yes.
leadership decision. Marketing's not recruiting. Maybe you need marketing. Although I would submit to you, there's no amount of marketing that's going to overcome a cop hater. What are you doing? What do I mean, but yeah, marketing plays a huge role in a department. But if you don't have people, what are you doing? And so we're a recruiting company. The interesting thing about what we do, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, is if there's a police chief opening in Tampa or Orlando, they don't go produce a fancy website and put up a billboard. What do? They hire a recruiting firm to go recruit the next chief. That's what they do. It's called a headhunter firm. And you see these ads out there,
Hmm.
don't you?
I do.
So why is it we don't do that for line officers? The most critical point, the most important role of our department. We just throw up a fancy website and some billboards and boost a few posts and think that's good? What? But that's what we do, right? Or we go to job fairs or whatever. And so what we do is we're a headhunter for line officers. And you tell us how many you need, that's what we do. And we have filled up academies. We've got departments back to fully staffed. I mean, we doubled Asheville PD overnight. They doubled their academy class sizes. So it's fun to be a part of
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
That's also a component of leadership. That's why I enjoy doing it. I have more of a managerial role. I mean, more of a decision-making role. I'm not teaching in that, but it's been fun to build that company to where it is because there's nothing like it. It's a law enforcement specific recruiting company ran by former law enforcement that knows the game inside and out. And unlike a marketing company that says, hey, give us $1,000 a month and we'll send people to your website. We say, give us this amount and you'll get this many applicants or your money back. We guarantee it's money back guarantee. But no, a lot of people go, we'd rather have a fancy video. We want a fancy website. I'm like, okay. I mean, I had a chief tell me a couple of years ago, he said, so you can send me 500 applicants a month. I go, yeah, it's guaranteed. He goes, I really just want a fancy video. I said, well, then you don't care about your recruiting. So go get your fancy video, And so by the way, we do videos, but we don't, but we're honest about it. We're like,
Yeah,
this
that's
helps your
baffling.
recruiting, but it won't fix your recruiting. So what we do is we'll grab your candidates, we'll grab your applicants, and we'll send them the videos. We'll get them excited. But you're never going to attract people with the video because think about the generation today, Doug. Your police recruiting video is nothing compared to what they saw that day on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. That's nothing. You're competing with all that stuff, right? And
Mhm.
so, but these chiefs want to see that, and so we do that. We just had a couple more clients this morning, and we're about to roll those out. They're expensive, I'll tell you that. They're very expensive. Recruiting's a lot cheaper, but we can solve the recruiting. We can resolve it for any department. We've done it, but we come in contact with leaders that don't want to understand it and make it easy to. Oh, we just want more clicks on a website. Well, good luck, right? And so that's been fun to do, but it's also been frustrating because I'm dealing with police leaders that are just refuse to make the decisions to actually staff their departments up. Like it's almost as if I don't know if you were involved with the union, but the union would almost they were in the business of complaining instead of solving problems, right? It's almost
Yes.
sometimes what we're seeing
Yeah.
with recruiting. Like, hey, if we can just say we're continually down on officers, they won't hold us accountable for response times or this or that, or we can ask for more money because we could say it's because of the salary. And so you see all this going on. Just make the right decisions. I mean, we've got a software package that doubles applications overnight, and literally, it's like it starts at 3,000 a year. Like if you could double your applications overnight, I mean, and we guarantee it. I mean,
Really?
that's what's so crazy. And so we if anybody wants any of that, you can reach out to me directly. Go to safeguardrecruiting.com. But I'm excited to be a part of that as well because that solves a real problem. If we don't fix this, we got a problem. Let me tell you how dire it is, Doug. If you have a department out there that's down 20, 25%, there's a lot of departments like that. How do you ever catch up?
You
You're
don't.
lucky if you just
You
you're
don't.
lucky if you break even and you just stay 20% down. So what my fear is if we don't figure this out, we will just all of a sudden have departments that think it's acceptable to be down that much. And by the way, and the reason it should matter for every leader is you're filling those beats with overtime. You're turning a cop into just crushed. Because those young cops that work 7 days a week and make that overtime.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of cop are they going to be 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road? And
Exactly.
we're not really understanding that.
Exactly. They're aging in dog years and they're missing the best
Yeah,
years of their family's lives. They're missing the first of their kids, the football games, the baseball games
yeah.
for really something that's going to be pissed away out of a paycheck. And
Mhm.
I fell into that trap. I thought this was important work, and just to come to find out that it's not really.
Well, how did you deal with this, Doug? Because I went through this, right? Like, this is a dysfunctional relationship
Oh,
because
yeah.
we
Yeah, yeah.
think we think the department loves us
No.
because we love the department. And then there comes a time, I think, in everyone's careers. Maybe there's the occasional Clayton Kershaw going out on top, and everyone loves you, although they'll forget about you the next day. But comes a point in everybody's careers where you go, "Wait a minute! I poured everything into this. I sacrificed family and birthdays and sleep and stress, and I've got this health problem, whatever. Come to find out, they didn't love me at all. And by the way, that's honesty. They're not required to love you. They're just required to give you a paycheck. But we're fed into this false belief that it's a mutual love. Now, if they don't realize that on the job, they realize that the next day after they retire because all these people you thought were your friends, they weren't really friends. I mean, maybe they were coworkers or associates, but they weren't really friends. I think I have 30 years at a major police department. There you go. That's how many friends I came out of. And, I'm sure I wasn't the nicest guy ever, but I tried to be. I mean, I thought I had hundreds of friends, to be quite honest with you. No, it was two.
Well, you're the
I'm glad
major.
I have. I'm glad I, well, yeah, everybody wants to be friends with the major.
Everybody loved your jokes. Everybody laughed. I'm the
Yeah,
funniest guy
everybody
ever.
laughed. Everybody laughed. Everybody helped me, if I needed anything until I couldn't do anything for them. But listen, I'm fortunate to have two. I'm not complaining. I'm blessed to have two. But I kind of wish I'd known this about, I don't know, midway through my career, because I probably wouldn't have sacrificed so much for a place that wasn't required to sacrifice back. Um, because you can be a hard worker, a dedicated worker, and not have to sacrifice things that are more important, which is your family and things like that.
That is true. And I wish I had known you were going to ask this question because I would have checked my watch to see what my baseline heart rate was before you started speaking. It's steady now since you asked. I will say this. I loved my career. I valued my career. I valued my organization. I believe they valued me until they didn't. And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was a hard lesson to learn. It was unrequited love. This object of my love and affection for at that point 22 years. It was my everything. I would get a bomb call out. I left my niece's christening for a bomb call out. She hadn't even been dipped yet, and I'm out the door because I got to be the number one. I got to be the guy in the suit.
Right.
I've gone to the district office on Christmas morning after my kids opened up packages on my day off just to check in with the troops. Not even my squad, not even my platoon. I've got dozens of horrible family examples that I did, but the moment I reached out my hand and expected to see some love back, it wasn't there. Now, to be expected. And again, I wish I had known this years and years and years ago. But this object of your affection and everything that you've donated and dedicated to it, when it's not returned, it hurts. But let's be honest, it's an inanimate object. It's a machine. I
Yeah.
used to refer to our organization and the profession as a speeding train. You can get on board and enjoy the ride, or they will use your guts to grease the gears. The train does not give a shit. It's going to continue to move. And if you decide you want to get off, it's not coming back to the station. The old
Well,
adage of never say no to the bosses because they'll never ask you again. So you never said no. And this thing of we're all brothers and sisters in blue, we're a family. No, we're not. We're coworkers at best. We have a commonality through shared hardships. We understand one another. I've worked with people that I admire. I've worked with people that I found disgusting human beings. But if it came down to a fight or 1024 or a shootout, I'm always down because I'm not going to be the reason you don't go home. So, irrespective of the way that I felt about them, I was always there for them. I put too much trust and too much weight into the opinions of people that, I wouldn't ask them about any other aspect of my life. Excuse me, I got this going on at home. Can you give me some marriage advice? No, I would never ask that because you are a horrible human being. Why do I care how you feel about me at work? You know what? We're just a big family. No, you're the creepy ass uncle who touches me when mom and dad leave. That's who you are. So, I wish I had known those things. I was overinvested and I over identified. And that's a me issue. And it's an issue that a lot of young officers and deputies will find themselves into. I caution against that because your family is at home. Your actual family, the man or woman who stood next to you at an altar and held hands, who chose you as their person, that's the one that's going to mourn you the day that you're no longer here. Your agency, who may have loved you, who may have valued you, and you may have had a beautiful career. The day after you leave, they'll be standing around telling stories about you, but they're going to snap their fingers when they say, there used to be a guy who worked here. What was his name? It doesn't matter what his name is, but he said this and it was hysterical. It's all rented admiration. The
well,
shit that you
let
put
me.
on your shirt
Yeah.
stays with the agency the day that you leave. And to have two friends, you're a lucky man. I've got
I
two.
am lucky. I'm
I've got
lucky.
two, and I'm fortunate.
Yeah, I'm lucky, but I want to give the other side of that coin.
Mhm.
Yes, you should not invest a love courtship into an agency inanimate object, but there is leadership that can that could be authentic to where it doesn't have to be the way I know the experiences both you and I have had. About
No,
the
and now,
last.
Travis, before you go any further, I want to clarify that if I had better leadership,
Yeah,
leadership with moral courage, the day that I reached out my hand and I said, I need help,
yeah,
and they helped,
yeah, 100%.
my story would have never been written.
I'll just give you the example. I was in Pinell County, Arizona. Sheriff Mark Lamb's now retired, but it was his department. He would bring me in every year, and I was doing a survey of the leadership in their department. It was anonymous. It was all online, so I'd see it real time, and so they could be very honest about it. And I would do these in my classes, and it just comes up on a slide, and it just rates your agency 1 to 10 on these leadership issues. The national average is about 24% out of 100, which is I'm used to seeing that.
Mhm.
These numbers started coming in. The first few days I did the class because it was a different group each day. It was a straight 100%. I think they ended with a 98.5%, and I'm like, what is going on? Right. And I started talking to these men and women in the hallways, and what they kept coming back to is, man, they support me, man, they take care of me. You know what? I had this problem and they could have fired me, Travis, but you know what they did? They sent me here, or they reassigned me, or they sent me to get help.
Mhm.
I mean, it was a true family in the best sense of an employer, and it was all based on leadership. And so you're right about that. We should put a proper focus on family and have our priorities straight, but it doesn't have to be the way what I think too many of us have experienced.
No, and it doesn't. And you're right. The culture of an organization is definitely the leadership. I'm a firm believer in that. It's their job to set it with their principles, their values, and to communicate that to the entire organization and to ensure that the rank and file are following along with that intent. I mean, they, like any big business, they drive the culture of the organization, and it can be toxic or it can be collaborative and safe. And when people feel like they're valued and they feel like they're safe and contributing, they will do anything and everything for you. I've had
Yeah.
fantastic leaders. I mean, leaders that should have written their own books. And I've had horrible martinets, horrible, just not good people who were driven by narcissistic rage, bullies, small people in every sense of the word. And, it was sad because it didn't have to be that way. And I don't think that, I think the people who become first responders and go into our profession or the disciplines of being a first responder deserve moral, courageous leadership. They deserve to be living better than the way they are. And I think it's a shame when they have to suffer at the hands of poor leadership, because the things that leaders do at work, the decisions they make, the things that they say, and the way that they treat their personnel, those things transfer to our home lives. How can they not? And I think if they are not aware that they have that impact on their personnel, then shame on them, they should. And if they are aware that those things impact their personnel when they're off duty and they continue that course of behavior, then they're complicit in whatever it is that's going on at home. And
Well, I'll take
I
it to the
can't
next
abide by
level.
that.
I'll take it to the next level. It's not just about home life. Don't preach community policing while you treat your personnel like crap, because where do you think that goes? I would have traffic. Different parts of my career, I would have traffic units work for me. As their number one complaint is rudeness. They, usually
Mhm.
come in almost daily. Well, I get one or two on a cat. I'm not thinking much of it, but I start seeing a series of rudeness complaints with one officer. You would think I would ask the sergeant or lieutenant, I would go, figure out what's wrong with this officer. Well, no, I'm looking at the sergeant lieutenant and saying, how are they treating this officer? Because if an officer's treating bad from their bosses, where do you think their outlet is? Their only person below them is the citizen.
That's it.
And so, yeah, that's exactly what happens when people are in a toxic environment. They have to vent that out somehow.
Mhm.
And it's going to be at home. It's going to be with the citizens, with contacts. Cops are not worried about outside the walls of their department. What's hurting law enforcement today is inside the walls. That's where the stress
Absolutely.
is. That's where the
Absolutely.
stress is today.
Again, I never feared a bad guy, ever. But anyway, Travis, man, it has been so wonderful to catch up with you and spend this time with you. We've been going just over an hour, and you're a busy man. I don't want to take up any more of your time. Where can everybody find you? Everything's going to be in the show notes because I want to make sure that I cover your career and what you're doing. So there are going to be some long show notes, but hit the wave tops for us.
Well, the best way to see is just go to the main website, travisyates.org. I do a weekly article, a weekly podcast, all that's free. If you are over on LinkedIn at all, I put a lot of videos up on
Mhm.
LinkedIn. Just hit Travis Yates, it pop up. But yeah, it's easy to see all that stuff. And I sometimes wonder, anybody, is anybody even seeing this stuff? But hey, like you said, if it can impact one person, it's worth it. But I'd be honored if people would pay to visit and check it out.
Well, I'll also put the link to your Substack in there. And everybody listening to us now, I will tell you this. If you read one of the articles, you're going to read the next one and the next one. You listen to one episode, you're going to listen to the next one. They are anywhere between 15 and like 33 minutes long. You can listen to it on the way to the gym and then on the way home from the gym or on the treadmill or walking around your neighborhood. They are bite size, easily digestible, and it's all good stuff. So, Travis, I appreciate you taking time with us. I appreciate what you've done in your profession and what you continue to do to serve the men and women in law enforcement. It is a testament to your moral courage and your leadership. So, thank you. And with that, everyone, again, thank you for joining us on Tell This Story. We'll see you next time. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of Tell This Story. Thank you for staying in the fight. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one person who needs it. Check out the show notes for our guest contact information and all their socials. Follow Tell This Story on the platform of your choice. Hit like and subscribe. Every rating helps get our voices to the people who need it most. Get your copy of my book, Hiding in Plain Sight, The Truth About Trauma, Service, and the Way Forward. It's now available on Audible, and you can get it anywhere you get your books. Tap into more information about this platform or resources for vets, responders, and their families at DougWhiteOfficial.com. We'll see you next time.